Looking for a home that keeps you connected to Silicon Valley without the usual barriers to entry? The Gates in Morgan Hill by City Ventures is a walkable neighborhood near downtown restaurants, outdoor trails, and an easy commute to the Bay Area. It's a small town setting with access to major career hubs. Every home is all electric with buyer-owned solar included. With limited availability, now's the time to take a closer look. Discover your new home at cityventures.com. That's cityventures.com.
Hey there, American History Hotliners. I need to make a correction to today's episode. You'll hear me say that Black Sabbath's first album was Paranoid. In fact, their first album was the self-titled Black Sabbath, which came out in February of 1970. Paranoid came out later that fall. Thanks to Dave for sending in that correction. We love hearing from all of you, even when it's about me getting something wrong. Okay, on with today's show.
The dove and the bat incident aren't even the only winged creature stories.
My God. Okay, Mark, what else you got?
You've reached American History Hotline. You ask the questions, we get the answers. Leave a message.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
T-Mobile is reinventing business internet with super broadband. Whether you run a small office or a factory of 500, connection is everything. Powered by America's fastest 5G internet, plus Starlink. Super broadband from T-Mobile reaches every zip code in the U.S. Super broadband, a new era of business internet. Visit superbroadband.com to learn more.
Fastest 5G network based on analysis by Ookla Speed Test Intelligence dated 2H 2025. Speeds vary due to local network characteristics and management. Satellite requires hardware installation. Clear view of the sky with 36-month commitment.
Aging is real, and so are the benefits of new Vital Proteins Collagen Sparkling Water. Because around the age of 30, your body needs backup to keep your collagen up. So get your daily glow up, now in 3 fresh flavors: strawberry blossom, lemon lime, and blood orange. Improved skin health in as little as 30 days thanks to collagen peptides. Cheers to that. So you can stay vital, stay you. Visit vitalproteins.com to learn more and where to buy. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Jardiance has a big story to tell. Discover Jardiance empagliflozin 10 or 25 milligram tablets. Visit Jardiance.com, call 1-888-968-6648, or talk to your doctor to see if Jardiance is right for you.
A little pill with a big story to tell.
If you're a QuickBooks customer looking to grow your business without the growing pains, you need the Intuit ERP. Upgrade to Intuit Enterprise Suite in a matter of hours. It's the AI-native ERP from the makers of QuickBooks. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
This is Tab Ramos from Inside American Soccer. The Cup Knockout round is now, and DraftKings has you covered for every single match. The DraftKings app is now available in all 50 states and includes all markets, bringing the game straight to your fingertips wherever you are. New DraftKings customers, sign up with code DK1, spend $5 to get $200 in rewards within 21 days. That's code DK1 in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Bet with DK Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-MY-RESET. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, bet tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Void in Canada. Event contract trading with DraftKings predictions involves risk of loss. Availability varies. Bet to get bonus bets that expire in 7 days. Trade to get $50 in predictions dollars that expire in 1 year. Issued every 7 days via click-to-claim for 21 days. One non-withdrawable reward redeemable. Predictions offer void in New York. July 19th. Terms at dkng.co/audio.
Hey there, American History Hotliners. Bob Crawford here. Thrilled to be joining you again for another episode of American History Hotline, the show where you ask the questions. And the best way to get us a question is to record a video or a voice memo on your phone and email it to americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. That's americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. And remember, we are American History Hotline. If you want to talk about the Beatles' Liverpool days, we may not want to do that. But if you want to talk about their 1964 tour of the United States, we can definitely do that. And with that, our show today is about rock legends and myths. Here to help me answer this question is a bit of a legend himself. It's Mark Kemp, an award-winning journalist who served as music editor at Rolling Stone, vice president of music editorial at MTV, and author of the book Dixie Lullaby, A Story of Music, Race, and New Beginnings in a New South. Mark, how's it going this morning?
It's going well, Bob. It's good to hear you. How are you?
It's good. I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. It's great. Always great to speak with you. And it's great to our audience can't, but it's nice for me. I can see you.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. Well, Mark, when I heard this question, I immediately thought of you. It comes from Trevor in Kansas City. He says, I've heard so many different stories about Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off a live bat while on stage. What the heck actually happened? Trevor, I'm with you. I can't tell you how many times I heard this story, especially growing up in the 1980s. Like, this was a high school legend. You know, like, did this really happen? We believed it at the time. And if you look at the cover of Bark at the Moon, you know, you think that's the guy, it's the kind of guy who might bite the head off of a live bat. So really excited to get to the bottom of this rock and roll legend. And by the way, we have another legend / myth to debunk or confirm. I want our listeners to know that later on in the show, we're going to talk about the feud between Lynyrd Skynyrd and Neil Young. So stick around for that. But first, let's jump into the Ozzy story, Mark. Can you set the scene? When and where is this all said to have happened?
Well, and he is the kind of guy who would bite the head off of a bat. He's the kind of guy who did a whole lot of things on stage and off. And that story is true. During a concert in Des Moines, Iowa in January of, I think, 1982, he infamously bit the head off of what he thought was a rubber bat thrown on stage. It turned out to be a real one. And he was rushed to the hospital for rabies shots, but the moment became immortalized, as you say, in rock folklore. But that's not the first time he bit the head off a winged creature.
Yeah, so this isn't the first time something like this happened?
I think it was 1981. The bat incident was 1982, but in 1981, he bit the head off of a live dove during a meeting with CBS Records about the album Blizzard of Oz. Sharon, his wife, had suggested releasing the doves as a publicity stunt, but Ozzy decided he wanted to go a step further, and he bit the head off of one during the meeting. It was meant to get attention, and it did, pretty much, along with immediate ejection from the building.
So was this like a press conference or a boardroom? I mean, I've been in some of those music record label boardroom meetings, and I got to tell you, sometimes, you know, you do feel like biting the head off of a live animal while you're in those meetings. But was this a meeting or a press conference? Were they working towards a deal?
It was a meeting, and I'm not sure what they were working on. I think they were working on publicity for the album, and or they were discussing the publicity of the album, because Sharon had brought the doves in to possibly use releasing them for the as a publicity stunt.
Was it Diary of a Madman?
No, it was Blizzard of Oz.
A Blizzard of Oz, okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and he just on the spur of the moment decided he would bite the head off of the dove. So that's, I think, probably why the next year somebody brought a bat and threw it on stage, and Ozzy thought it was a rubber one, and he bit that head off. So, yep, not the first time.
So many questions. So getting back first to the dove incident, I mean, had he done this before? Like, do we know like what was it in his makeup, in his personality that, I mean, because he could argue like the bat in Des Moines, he thought it was a rubber bat. That makes perfect sense. It's part of the shtick, but this was a live dove that he actually bit off, and he didn't even do it to get mass attention. He did it like in a meeting. So what is it about Ozzy? Do we know anything about his youth and his upbringing that would kind of preclude this?
Well, Ozzy started out, as something of a juvenile delinquent, and way back in 1965, I guess about 3 years before Black Sabbath started, he stole a television and attempted to climb over a wall with it and was arrested and wound up in a British prison for, I think, 6 weeks. So, I mean, we know Ozzy was a troublemaker from day one. And then, in 73, almost a decade later, he had such a bad drug and alcohol problem that he was fired from Black Sabbath. I mean, you have to have a pretty bad drug and alcohol problem to be fired from a band like Black Sabbath. But then that's not even the Dove and the Bad Incident aren't even the only winged creature stories.
My God. Okay, Mark, what else you got?
The first winged creature story was in 1976, about 3 years after he was fired from Black Sabbath. He was living in the countryside. I think it was Staffordshire, England, and he was drunk and became angry and shot a bunch of chickens in his backyard coop. Then burned the coop while throwing live ammo into the flames. So there are no shortage of crazy Ozzy stories.
And so if we fast forward back to Des Moines, Iowa, right. This concert was, and he thought he claims that he thought it was a rubber bat, but what's the difference for Ozzy, right? Like, so had he kind of reformed himself by this point?
I don't think so. He claimed he thought it was a rubber bat, but I mean, based on the other two winged creature stories, one would think that he would probably have bitten the head off of it, except that it was a bat, and bats are a little more dangerous than doves or chickens.
Oh man, bird flu. That's all I can think about. And so let's talk about this time period, right? The early '80s, heavy metal. When I was reflecting on when Ozzy passed there at the end of July or early August, I went back and listened to Black Sabbath for a week, and I listened to their first album. And War Pigs is the first song on the first album. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, Vietnam War. This is the time of the hippies, and here you have an anti-war anthem, right? But this is not Flowers and see you down in San Francisco with a flower in your hair and free love and all that kind of stuff. This is something completely different.
Yeah, not at all. It's more like goth. I mean, it's pre-goth. Yeah, he was not a hippie. He looked like a hippie, but he was definitely not a hippie.
Mark, I'm just thinking about the culture of this moment that Ozzy kind of grew out of, and I want to put this in historic perspective. Okay,
right.
So Black Sabbath starts in 1970. I think their first album, correct me if I'm wrong, comes out in 1970.
Yes, because it was
that first song, first album is War Pigs.
Right.
And I if our listeners haven't heard it, maybe iHeart will pay for us to play a clip of it.
In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning, death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh, Lord, yeah.
When you think about the late 60s, early 70s, you think about The Doors, you think about LSD,
Jefferson
Woodstock, Jefferson Airplane, it's psychedelia, it's anti-war, and this is anti-war, but it is completely like something that no one has ever heard before, a sound no one had ever heard really before. The only other antecedents cousins to the sound of Black Sabbath, I think of like Led Zeppelin, and that's like 1968, right?
Yeah, or Blue Cheer, maybe. I mean, they were kind of like hard rocking at a time when nobody was hard rocking, but not like Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin or Deep Purple or any of those really, proto metal bands, basically. And
proto metal bands. So in a lot of ways, Black Sabbath is the beginning of metal.
Yeah. I think you can safely say metal proper started with Black Sabbath. It had everything. It had the minor chord sound. It had the lurching, sort of slow, sludgy, and
pre-grunge, right? We think like the chunk.
Yeah, the chunkiness. And then it also had those dark lyrics that, you're just talking about it. And War Pigs, I think the only other band that you could say would be that would have been that gothy at the time would be the Doors. But even they didn't have that slow, lurchy, crunchy, Black.
They were more romantic.
Yeah.
The Doors were more romantic.
Right.
Jim Morrison was a poet.
You're right. They were a little more intellectual, and Sabbath was not. They were just, in your face, dark.
So biting the head off of a live bat or dove, that comes out of a darkness.
Yeah, it made sense. I mean, in as much as it could make sense. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing, from shooting chickens to biting doves' heads off to the bat, the ultimate bat incident, makes sense in the chronology.
So now we're like early 80s, like 80, you said it was 80 or 81?
81 was the dove incident, and 82 was the bat incident, yes.
And a young man brought a bat to a Ozzy concert. How did he get it in?
Yeah, you would never get a bat into a concert in 2025, but I don't know how he got it in. I mean, who knows? I mean, he was a metal fan. He figured it out.
And so Alice Cooper, I remember a similar story about Alice Cooper. Do you know that
Well,
one?
the cutting baby dolls during dead babies?
Oh, no. Not that one. The chicken.
Oh, right. The chicken. I'm not as familiar with that as I am the bat incident or
someone brings a live chicken to the Alice Cooper concert.
Right. And oh yes, I've seen.
He throws it back into the crowd. Who
rip it apart.
Mutilates it.
They rip it apart. I think there may even be video of that, isn't there, on YouTube?
I don't know.
I'm not sure, but yeah, that's right. I remember that now. And there are other Alice. I mean, there were a lot of antics back then, like really dark antics, like, him getting hung and his head chopped off and all that stuff. So all of this makes sense, given the times.
To put a nice button this up with Ozzy, he passed away, a few weeks before we recorded this. How do you rank him, with your vast knowledge of rock music, late 20th century, early 21st century rock music? Where do you rank him in the annals of rock history? Is he top 20, if we can even play that game? What is his lasting contribution?
I mean, he's important. He's hugely important. I mean, particularly since he went on to become this, almost lovable uncle on the show. Who knew that was going to happen? It's kind of like Alice Cooper playing golf with Bing Crosby or something. It just, you didn't know that.
Yeah. Or Donald Trump becoming president.
Yes.
Who saw that coming?
Who saw that coming? Exactly. So, given that, and given the fact that he was in the preeminent proto metal band, and continued through the 80s being a super important frontman and always in the news for more than just these things. I mean, he got arrested for pissing on the Alamo, in Texas. There's so many stories, and that's just stories. In terms of his, and his voice is, you Ozzy when you hear him. Nobody sounds like Ozzy. None of those hair metal bands that followed sounded like Ozzy. He has this voice that's just unmistakable. all these things make him super important. Top 20? I don't know. You got a lot of people like Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and the Stones and the Allman Brothers. And, there's so many, great rock and roll bands. But he certainly is way up there. And certainly culturally, he made a massive impact, because when I was in school, when I was junior high in the early 70s, Black Sabbath was the band. I loved Black Sabbath. The first 3 albums were I loved them, as did most of my misfit, 12, 13-year-old friends. So culturally, he made a massive impact. He's important. He's much more important than rock critics of the period gave him. They were kind of, so used to analyzing Dylan lyrics and looking for cultural significance in a more heady way, that when Black Sabbath came out, these rock critics of the day were like, what the hell is this? It's just a bunch of noise and an idiot frontman. But it turns out he made much more of an impact. He was much more than that. Nirvana called, Kurt Cobain said, his 2 biggest influences were the Beatles and Black Sabbath, in those days. So, in retrospect, a massively important figure in rock.
I would say that Black Sabbath is hugely influential in the Seattle scene of the late 80s.
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Mudhoney, Nirvana, L7, all these bands.
Yeah.
What's up, fam? I'm sports journalist Ari Chambers.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sam J.
And we're the hosts of Everyone Watches Women's Sports, a new podcast from Together and iHeart Women's Sports.
Because let's be real, women's sports is giving us way too much to talk about these days.
The highlights, the rivalries, the breakout stars, the moments that take over your entire timeline.
And the conversations that start during the game and somehow keep going all week.
Every week, we're breaking down the biggest stories across women's sports.
We'll give you our takes, our debates, and probably a few disagreements.
We'll talk to athletes, celebrate big moments, and get into what's happening on and off the field, court, track, and beyond.
Because we're not just interested in what happened, we're interested in why everyone's talking about it. Because everyone watches women's sports. So if you're already a fan,
or you're just getting into the game, there's a seat for you right here.
Listen to Everyone Watches Women's Sports
on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Hoda Kotb, host of the podcast Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb. Okay, if you know me, you know this. I'm always searching for inspiration, for support, and useful tools to help maximize joy. So this podcast lets us uncover all of that together. We're going to have these meaningful conversations with the world's most fascinating people, like when actress Olivia Munn shared how she overcame fierce health challenges that she never saw coming.
I've gone through breast cancer and then helped my mother through breast cancer, and that was more difficult. There's a lot of people who understand postpartum depression. I was not prepared for postpartum anxiety.
Olympic champ Shawn Johnson revealed why she had no choice but to be a gymnast.
There was something about gymnastics that was intoxicating to me. It's given me a belief that we all have one of those treasures inside of us. We just have to find it.
Listen to Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My first guest is Paris Hilton, Shakira, Luke and Yerin, Samira y Gracie. I'm so excited.
On a bouncy bed.
You have surprises?
Many surprises.
Welcome to Suite 305, where the group chat comes to life. What up? Es como que una forma de decir como, hola amiga, hola mejor amiga, hola hermana, what up?
Mira, nunca lo había hablado con nadie. Excepto con mis hijos. Mis hijos sí saben.
Yes. Sé mi amante.
Uf. Uf. Qué increíble. Ya, la telenovela.
You're the only person I know that loves a yellow starburst. It's lemonade.
No hay alguien que te falta, como que tú dices, me gustaría colaborar con esta persona. This is Suite 305. Listen to Suite 305 with Lele Pons as part of My Cultura podcast network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jake Brennan, and on my podcast, Disgraceland, I tell the stories behind music's biggest names, the moments that shaped them, haunted them, and changed music history forever. Like how the story of the Foo Fighters and Dave Grohl isn't just about music. Imagine that. You're in the biggest band on the planet, as Dave Grohl was in 1994 in Nirvana. And the phone rings, and you learn that your singer, your friend, the reluctant voice of a generation, Kurt Cobain, is dead. This is a story of fame, pressure, friendship, and the weight of fulfilling your destiny. Learn more about the moment everything changed. Disgraceland is part of the Exactly Right Network. Listen to new episodes every Tuesday, bonus episodes Thursday, and rewinds on Sunday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's the Jonas Brothers. This week on the podcast, Hey Jonas, we're hanging out with the one, the only, and the one, Michael Bublé.
You guys, I'm genuinely a huge fan. Like, it's funny, you know, I made a whole thing about doing this TikTok where I got you guys to sign the guitar, but right. It was real. Like, we listen to you in the car all the time. Like, it literally is hanging up with all your signatures.
Wow. I am so honored. After Kevin's recent, let's call it interesting confession about Michael, I had a feeling this wasn't going to be going away. We figured there was only one thing to do. We must invite Michael Bublé on the podcast, and we want to know what's on his Sexy Time playlist.
You know, I did an interview, and they're like, have you heard about this Jonas Brothers thing? And they're like, what did you think of it? And I was like, well, I mean, it's reciprocal. Like, what a man got to do? No. What a man got to do?
We talk about Kevin's confession, Michael's reaction, and a whole lot more. Do you have a hockey rink in your house?
I do.
Our conversation with Michael Bublé is out now. Listen to Hey Jonas on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Quick side note. My new book, America's Founding Son, John Quincy Adams from President to Political Maverick, is coming out soon. Now, if you are as excited as I am, please show some love and pre-order your copy today. Available wherever fine books are sold. This is American History Hotline. I'm your host, Bob Crawford. Today, my guest is Mark Kemp, an award-winning journalist who served as music editor at Rolling Stone. He's also the author of a book, Dixie Lullaby, a story of music, race, and new beginnings in a new South. We're myth-busting some rock and roll legends today. And hey, do you have a question about American history? It can be about American music. We love it. If so, record yourself using the voice memo app on your phone and email it to americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. That's americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Mark, there's a myth that Ronnie Van Zant, the lead singer of Lynyrd Skynyrd, was buried in a Neil Young t-shirt. Now, there's a lot to this story. Can we go back to the beginning of the relationship of these two artists? What was going on between Neil Young and Lynyrd Skynyrd?
Okay, well, first, Ronnie Van Zant was not buried in a Neil Young t-shirt, although that is
myth busting.
That is a myth. But there's a lot. There's a lot to say about the relationship between Ronnie Van Zant and Neil Young. Lynyrd Skynyrd's biggest song, well, arguably their biggest song, there's Freebird, but Sweet Home Alabama, Ronnie Van Zant name checks Neil Young.
Well, I hope Neil Young will remember. I said a man don't need him around anyhow.
And that came out of a couple of songs that Neil Young had recorded just a few years earlier that criticized heavily the South for its segregation and racism and all that stuff. Southern Man was the first one.
Southern man, better keep your head. Don't forget what your good book said.
And then there's Alabama. Alabama, you got the weight of something, I forget the lyrics, but both of them severely criticized the whole South for, what was going on in terms of race relations at the time. And Neil Young was rightly criticizing the South for that. Ronnie Van Zant basically came along and said, wait a minute, you are criticizing the whole South for something only some Southerners are guilty of. Also, there's a lot of guilt to be shared by both the North and the South. There's a line in the song that goes, "Watergate does not bother me. Does your conscience bother you?" And I think he was kind of saying, everybody's criticizing the South for a lot of stuff that's going on politically in our country, but there's a lot going on in our country that doesn't have anything to do with the South. Everybody's guilty. So there's a whole lot of subtext to Sweet Home Alabama that I don't even know that Ronnie Van Zant was completely, cognizant of. He was just writing a song, and really, to a great extent, the song was kind of a joke, but it wasn't a joke. It was a joke, but not a joke. He was kind of trying to put Neil Young in his place for writing these songs, wholesale criticizing the South. At the same time, he loved Neil Young. He would wear Neil Young t-shirts in concert, and Neil Young loved them. I mean, he liked that song. He played that song in concert.
Neil Young played Sweet Home Alabama?
He's played Sweet Home Alabama in concert. So they had it's just like any kind of lighthearted feud that sometimes rockers have with each other. And there are response songs. The response songs go all the way back to "It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk." It wasn't God who made Honky Tonk Angels. The song that was an answer to Honky Tonk Angels, an earlier song that criticized women who went out to honky tonks and hooked up with men, So there's a long history of these answer songs, or these response songs. And Sweet Home Alabama was one of those songs. In the years since, it's become fighting words. I mean, not Lynyrd Skynyrd, but Neil Young, I think once when he tried to play somewhere down south, he got death threats because people took it so seriously that they were angry at Neil Young. But Ronnie Van Zant and Lynyrd Skynyrd were never angry with Neil Young.
Did they take up for each other? Like, I mean, you talk about them admiring each other, and Neil Young doing Sweet Home Alabama, which as soon as we're done recording, I'm going to be searching on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But did Ronnie Van Zant ever kind of like come out like in magazines or newspapers or in the media and take up for Neil Young?
Yes, he did. Very, very clearly. He said, "We love Neil Young." There's one line I think he said in a radio interview, "We love Neil Young. We just felt like he was shooting all the ducks to kill just one," or some Southernism. And Neil Young likewise has said, I'm a big fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd. He said that he had performed Sweet Home Alabama before, and he also wrote a couple of songs, one of which was Powderfinger, specifically for Lynyrd Skynyrd to record, but sadly they never got around to it before the tragic plane crash that killed Van Zant. But yeah, I mean,
so let you mentioned the plane crash, which is as much a part of the myth and the legend as this competition between Neil Young and Lynyrd Skynyrd. Talk about that plane crash.
Well, I mean, it came right during the period when Lynyrd Skynyrd was going from band that had hit with Sweet Home Alabama to band that had concert anthem with Freebird to band that was about to make it into the mainstream with their Street Survivors album. They were on tour for Street Survivors and were about to really, really blast off.
What year is this?
That was 1977. Yeah. So they were about to blast off and really become, a very well-known, I mean, they are now, but more well-known back then, mainstream rock band. What's That Smell was big. I mean, there were a few songs on that album that were huge, and some of them became huge after the plane crash, which often happens, when people die. But yeah, I mean, they were really taking off at that time. I remember thinking that was, at the time, that this is their best album. They were really tight. They sounded great. All the songs were good. So it was horrible. It was really tragic. It was like, I suspect young people felt, when they heard that Kurt Cobain had killed himself. It was like, oh, we're just getting started, and this band is now gone.
And so this was one of these situations where the plane it was a small plane, and it encountered like bad weather.
Yeah, and I think it was Mississippi, and they were coming, I believe, either from South Carolina or to South Carolina. I have all this stuff, but I don't have it in my head right now. But it was down there in that area.
When I think about Southern rock and then trying to give us a historic cultural background, I see in my head Allman Brothers with the Confederate flag behind them. I remember interviewing someone about the Allman Brothers a few years ago, and the writer said, you had a black man in the Allman Brothers. That was not the Confederate flag in the Southern rock culture was not a racial icon. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's true to a great extent. I mean, there's even a photograph of the Velvet Underground with a Confederate flag behind them, and they had nothing to do with the South. And I mean, it's really kind of weird to see a Confederate flag behind Lou Reed because it has nothing to do with South. I think the Confederate flag at that time, pretty much for white people, signified, rebelliousness. But it still, even back then, was not very cool, for black people. I mean, it still was a slap in the face for black people. And I think it only became after like the 70s, the dialogue started and black people were going, no, this is so not cool. And some artists, I think, remained rebellious and said, well, we're going to use it anyway. It represents our heritage, blah, blah, blah. And then most said, oh, okay, and stopped using it. And even, as far as Lynyrd Skynyrd went, Ronnie Van Zant said before he died that, one, it was MCA's idea to put the rebel flag behind them because they were a Southern band. They were marketing the band that way as rowdy Southerners. But Ronnie Van Zant didn't like it, and they stopped using it because he thought it was stupid, he said. But then they started back when fans wanted it back, I think, after the next phase of Lynyrd Skynyrd, after the plane crash. They started using it again, and it became an issue. And then at some point, the newer Lynyrd Skynyrd stopped using it, and then their fans balked, and they brought it back again. So it's gone back and forth. It's pretty offensive to use a Confederate flag, and I think we all kind of can say that now. But at the time,
absolutely,
it didn't have the meaning for white people that it does now. White people just weren't aware of the pain that it caused, I don't think.
So we started out today talking about metal, Ozzy, and that culture, and from 1970 to the early 80s. And here we have Lynyrd Skynyrd, and Neil Young, different sides of the musical spectrum, same historical moment. So on the one hand, we have this cultural debate, literal cultural debate in song between, about criticism of Southern historical culture, Southern history, criticism about slavery, really, and then a defense of Southern culture on Lynyrd Skynyrd's side.
Right.
And then the rebelliousness of what Southern rock was, just it was a rebellion.
Right. Yes.
And so was metal.
Right. Exactly.
Metal was a rebellion as well.
And when you just said we've gone from this to this, and the common denominator there is Lynyrd Skynyrd. So you have proto metal on one side, you have kind of folky Americana, what we call Americana now on the other side with Neil Young. And then if you have a Venn diagram, Lynyrd Skynyrd's somewhere in the middle there. They were kind of metal. They had metal aspects to them, but they weren't metal like Sabbath. and they had Americana aspects to them. So we've kind of come full circle with a nice little Venn diagram.
Freebird has a lot of attributes of metal in it.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure. The last part of it just screams. And yeah, there are some other songs that do too. Saturday Night Special.
Sweet Home Alabama does name check one of the state's most controversial leaders, George Wallace, who was the governor when the song was released. He also went on to be a really legitimate, almost third-party candidate. It really tore apart the Democratic Party in the late 1960s and early 70s. He made a few runs for the presidency. Was ultimately shot by a would-be assassin and left to serve out his days in a wheelchair. But the lyric in Sweet Home Alabama is, "In Birmingham they love the governor. We all did what we could do." George Wallace is famous for saying, "I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever."
Right.
Can you kind of put that in context? Those two
that's
lyrics?
Such an important thing for us to talk about, because that is the spot in that song, if there's any, and there's several, where people go, whoa, this is messed up. Are they racist? What's going on? Why are they defending George Wallace? Are they defending George Wallace? It's really kind of it's kind of vague in a way, and I'll talk about why in a second. And sadly, Ronnie Van Zant isn't here to say what he actually meant. So everybody and their brother has analyzed that song, and a lot of people come up with analysis that just fits the narrative that they want to tell. And I dealt with this extensively in my book. Some people will say that they say, in Birmingham, they love the governor. Boo, boo, boo. And that's the defense of, oh no, they're not. They're criticizing Governor Wallace in that one. So those are the ones who their agenda is to make Lynyrd Skynyrd out to be a little more progressive. And then now there are others who say, no, I mean, they're defending the governor, including Ed King, the guitarist, one of the first guitarists of Lynyrd Skynyrd. I had a long conversation with him in Nashville, and he said, no, those guys really respected George Wallace. In fact, Wallace made the band honorary lieutenant colonels in the state militia. And according to King, they were thrilled with that honor. They liked it. They liked the fact that he did it. King also said that, so there's George Wallace in the early 60s, segregation now, segregation forever. And then there's George Wallace of the early 70s, in which he had a good percentage of the black vote, because George Wallace became less of a racist firebrand. I mean, he was an opportunist, whatever, but he became less of a racist firebrand and more of a working class, for the working class. So a lot of blacks voted for George Wallace later on, in the later 60s and early 70s. King said that was the Wallace that Skynyrd, that the members of Skynyrd respected. So there are those, including Ronnie Van Zant's wife, who go with the boo, boo, boo argument. And there are those, including Ed King, the original guitarist, who go, no, those weren't boo, boo, boos.
We need to, when we're thinking about Neil Young on progressive, very California, Canadian, but probably associated with California at this point in his life, right? Progressive.
Well, kind of.
And
but there was that time in the 80s that he all of a sudden became a Reagan guy, but then he went back to progressive. So there's even ambiguity there.
Well, yeah. So what I'm thinking about here, well, these guys are all rebels, right? But what I'm thinking about here is 1968 and the fight for the Democratic presidential nomination.
Right.
And Bobby Kennedy Sr. is assassinated, right, after winning the Democratic primary.
Right.
And his voters, many of his voters, go to George Wallace.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the working class.
That's the working class. Yeah.
That's the working class.
It wasn't really about race at that time. It was about working class issues. And that's kind of where we are today. I also argue in the book that the and I'm not the only one, obviously, the divide and conquer thing, that the powers that be from the time of slavery in this country, to now have sought to divide poor blacks and poor whites so that the elite, the power that be, can prevail with whatever agenda is going on. So that's where we were at that time too. I think poor people have a hell of a lot more in common with each other than they do any political party or leader who's in office.
Right. There have been a few times in our nation's history where we've had the fusion, right? They call that the fusion between the poor blacks and the poor whites. And here in North Carolina, at one point we had that, and it ended in a massacre and a coup in Wilmington, North Carolina. But that's a whole
nother topic. But boy, is that a good one to have.
Yeah, it really is. So just to kind of give the context, there's the Birmingham lyric, right? Mm-hmm. In Birmingham, they love the governor. Boo, boo, boo. I looked it up online. I have it written out. They wrote out boo, boo, boo. Now, we all did what we could do.
Now, Watergate does not bother me. Does your conscience bother you? Tell the truth.
Now, Watergate does not bother me. Does your conscience bother you? Tell the truth. So they do those two kind of political. Yeah, on this side, we love our governor. And then on the other side, it's like, but he's saying Watergate doesn't bother him.
See, I think he was being sarcastic when he said, now Watergate does not bother me. Isn't that the lyric? Now Watergate does not bother me.
Yeah, does not bother me.
I think he's being kind of sarcastic there. And does your conscience bother you? In other words, are you projecting your guilty feeling, you being people who aren't Southern? Are you projecting your feelings of guilt onto us because your conscience is bothering you? I mean, y'all are the people who voted for Mr. Nixon, and he's a crook. That's how I read it. But again, Ronnie Van Zant's dead. He can't answer these questions.
Mark, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. I've been talking with Mark Kemp, an award-winning journalist who served as music editor at Rolling Stone, vice president of music editorial at MTV, and the author of the book Dixie Lullaby, a story of music, race, and new beginnings in a new South. Mark, we'll have to do this again sometime.
Oh, I'd love to, Bob. Thank you.
You've been listening to American History Hotline, a production of iHeart Podcasts and Scratch Track Productions. The show's executive producer is James Morrison. Our executive producers from iHeart are Jordan Runtaw and Jason English. Original music composed by me, Bob Crawford. Please keep in touch. Our email is americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. If you like the show, please tell your friends and leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. I'm your host, Bob Crawford. Feel free to hit me up on social media to ask a history question or to let me know what you think of the show. You can find me at Bob Crawford Bass. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.
What's up, fam? It's sports journalist Ari Chambers.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sam J.
And we're the hosts of Everyone Watches Women's Sports, a new podcast from Together.
We're breaking down the biggest headlines, the viral moments, and the stories everyone's talking about across women's sports.
From game-changing performances to culture-shifting conversations, we'll give you our takes, our debates, and a few laughs along the way.
Because everyone watches women's sports. Listen to Everyone Watches Women's Sports
on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy is essential and it's also elusive. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Open your free iHeartRadio app, search Joy 101, and listen now. Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb is presented by CVS.
My first guest is Paris Hilton, Shakira, Luke, and Yerin. Have surprises?
Many surprises.
Welcome to the Sweet 305 podcast, where the group chat comes to life.
What up? You're the only person I know that loves a yellow Starburst. It's lemonade.
This is Sweet 305. Here, oversharing is encouraged. Listen to Sweet 305 with Lele Pons on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's the Jonas Brothers. This week on the podcast, Hey Jonas, we're hanging out with Michael Bublé. After Kevin's recent interesting confession about Michael, we figured there's only one thing to do. We must invite Michael Bublé on the podcast, and we want to know what's on his Sexy Time playlist.
You know, I did an interview, and they're like, have you heard about this Jonas Brothers thing? And they were like, what did you think of it? And I was like, well, I mean, it's reciprocal.
We talk about Kevin's confession, Michael's reaction, and a whole lot more. Our conversation with Michael Bublé is out now. Listen to Hey Jonas on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
30 years ago, an island off Manhattan almost brought down New York City.
Who will you trust? Your friends and neighbors? Or will you trust the people 5 miles overseas?
This is a story about neighbors turning on each other and what happens when a forgotten place decides it's had enough.
But we're not stopping, are we?
Listen to Revisionist History, The Staten Island Problem on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.